זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך, והוא רואה, והוא שומע.
What a great day to jump into his word. Hi, I'm Charlie, and I am here with a practical portion with you today. Loving taking these concepts that sometimes feel a little strange, especially when we're looking into Torah and we're bringing him into the whole testament of his word. And sometimes it can just feel a little bit overwhelming, especially jumping into the book of Leviticus, where we're at again today. One of my favorite books. I will say my favorite book. Honestly, it's hard. You know, I say this all the time. It's my favorite. Last week was my favorite portion. This is just a continuation, talking a little bit more about these approaches, right? We talked about last week. The word sacrifice is just not a really, I just hate it. I don't like it at all. I just feel like it was such a bad, it's not a good definition of the korbanot. It's so beautiful as opposed to this sacrifice that I have to do to appease a God who's mad at me. And it's really just so much more. It's so much not that, and so much about something so beautiful. So we're going to jump into this portion, and it's called Tzav. Tzav. Everyone try to say it. It's like whatever. Tzav. I'll try to say it all together. Tzav. 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 Yeah, that. We're in Leviticus 6. We're going to start in verse 8. And this is kind of a shorter one. We're going to scoot through 8:36, but it's power-packed, right? If you have time this week to hop into Malachi 3:4-24 and Matthew 17:9-13, keep in a track. Some people ask, well, why do you go through these portions? Since this is called the practical portion, let's just really quick just explain. You know, one of the things a good thing that happened, I believe, my opinion, coming out of Babylon was the parsha readings, the portion readings, which was for me I think it was a positive thing, because what happened is when they were in Babylon, they realized, wow, the reason we got into Babylon is because we lost sight of his Torah, of his decrees, of his instructions. We lost it. And so how do we find ways to make sure we never lose it again? One of the things they did is they started an education system for children as they're growing up, that they went through a process of an education starting as children, and then they would, as they showed promise or the ability to learn and grow and memorize and have an understanding of Torah, then they would be brought to the next level. And some of them didn't, so they may go home, okay, and work at their family business. That was one of the cool things when Jesus went around saying, follow me. Most of what happened with all the disciples is they hadn't been chosen by a rabbi, or they hadn't made it to that process to where they would have been picked to have followed a rabbi around. And so they were involved in their family businesses. So their families would have been thrilled that a rabbi said, follow me, come follow me, because that was part of that process that came out of Babylon, that was bringing children up through a process of learning his word. Why? To make sure we don't end up in Babylon again. Now, another thing that happened was these parshas, dividing up the Torah portions, dividing up prophets, and saying, every week we're going to all read the same thing. We're going to all read this section. That way we're all on the same page, and we're going to keep teaching it every week, every year, every week, every year, same thing, same time, same place, same channel. Why? Because we want to make sure that we don't end up in Babylon again. So there's a lot of people, I have friends who just don't agree, and they don't, and I love them dearly. They don't agree with this. They feel like it's something that came out of Babylon. They don't want to do it. For me, going through each one of the portions and having a section that I'm responsible for reading, and it helps me with the overwhelm. I have some symptoms of ADHD. So for me to have something I can focus on and say, this is what I'm focusing on right now, it eliminates all the other have-tos and all the you should do this and you should do. I know that this is what I want to focus on. If I do more, great. If not, great. But this is the section I get to focus on. And for me, It's brought shalom in my home, in my mind, in this temple, in my life, in my everything. And the growth has been exponential. And so every year as I'm going through this, you'd think, oh, well, I already did this last year. No, it's so new. And it's so fun every year to find out what is he going to open up this year. So this year, as you're hopping into this section, I want to I pray that you get excited about going through his word. You get excited about learning new things. You get excited about being part of what he's doing. And I also want you to get excited about being part of something that keeps us from going back into Babylon, even in our own mind, right? This keeps me from jumping back into Babylon. The temptation to go off into all kinds, it keeps me focused. It keeps me from becoming in bondage to other things because it keeps me in truth. It keeps me rooted in him and the things of him every week. So with that, I'll just leave it there. So the other thing, if you're interested, we do have a reading schedule. Why don't I have one on my desk? Because I just moved it. I have a reading schedule. We mail it out all the time. You can download it and print it. If you want a copy of that, would you email us at info@therootedcafe.com, KAFE. If you're on our band, ladies, if you're on our private band, if you're not, why? Because we love being on there as opposed to like Facebook. We have kind of we've moved our private group just because it keeps the distraction of all the advertising and the things that pop up. It's a nice focused place to have our community, but we have it up in there in files. You can just click on it, download it, print it. But we would love to get that to you. And it breaks it down for you. So it's easy and it's pretty, it's color coded. So let me know if you need a copy of that. You can again email info@therootedcafe, KAFE.com. Hey, speaking of that, this weekend, we had the most amazing prayer conference. It was called She Prays 2023. Get ready because we will have She Prays 2024. This is something we want to do every single year because I am passionate about how much the Father is calling us to prayer, But I'm just going to tell you, we were empowered this weekend. We had such amazing speakers all weekend long, all day long Sunday, literally one right after the other. We had right around 200 women total, if you include all the women who showed up to watch parties all over this ball rolling through space, this planet. Women tuned in and watched and learned about prayer, learned about getting close to the Holy One. Such amazing speakers that we had. The word that popped up over and over was kavanah, the intentions of our heart. And none of our speakers, none of them spoke to each other. And it was really fun to hear all the similar threads that went throughout the day. And one of them was kavanah, the intention. Are you setting your intention to get close to the Creator? Are you setting your intention to spend time with Him? It's interesting. We will run after these cure-alls for beautiful skin. Let's get rid of wrinkles. My wellness. The magic cure for this, the magic oil for this, Now, am I loving all those things? Yes. However, what I have found is that we don't run after him in prayer. Yes, I'm going to get to this Torah portion, I promise. We're close. But we're not running after him in prayer. Isn't that where we get cured? What in your life would be cured if you ran after him the same way you ran after all these magic button things, these magic pills or magic potion or magic oil or magic this? What would happen if we actually ran after him that way? What would be cured in your life, in your mind? What would be renewed? What would be restored? I know for me, I have really been pushing into prayer like I never have before. I'm honest with you guys, prayer has been difficult for me because as I start praying, my mind distracts and I do all these things. So it's something I'm setting my kavanah, an intention. And I believe he's healing me and helping me get better at it. But what I'm seeing is answers to things. What? Magical? No, it's the principle. As I'm praying for my daughter for things to come up in her life, I'm getting texts this morning about how she's professing the goodness of God and how she's praying and God is listening and how he's hearing her. What? All of that from actually thanking him for what he's doing in her life as opposed to talking about maybe something I don't like that she's doing or a friend or or a ministry or a business or thing. What if we, with everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, start presenting our request of God? What's going to happen? He promises us the peace of God that transcends all understanding, that shalom in the middle of the fractured chaos and all of that, that place of being unfractured. We're just so whole. It's going to guard our hearts and our minds. And I'm just going to speak to every woman out there dealing with trauma, anxiety, panic, fear, control, all the things we're struggling with right now that I hear, the big five right now. I promise you, as we press into him, as much or more, would be great, as we're pressing into all of the meds and the counseling and all the other things we're spending time with an hour at a counselor. What if we spend an hour in prayer as well? What if we pushed in this with the same intensity that we're looking for a different cure with him? I think we're going to see magical things happen. And I want to hear all of the things that are happening, all the testimonies from you. Would you email me? Would you comment here? Would you do all the things? I want to hear about the testimonies of your prayers that are being answered, how your heart and your mind are being guarded, how you're realizing it's gone 2 days and you didn't even think about that thing that used to torment you. Maybe it was half a day. That was sometimes when that tab is open and you can't close it, having that happen just one day where you live one day without that, or 1 hour. Oh my gosh, what a testimony. What if we start thanking him for the goodness, and then it's 2 hours and then 6 hours and then a day and then a week and then we're healed? What if that's how it happens? I would love to hear this. Okay. So I'm excited about that. Well, you can still get the videos. That video package we have, is it about 6 hours? Oh, probably more. There was Deborah Flanagan twice. We have Valerie Moody. Then we had Robin Luton at the very end. We had Misty Harbor, myself, Denise Hefner, and Dr. Deb. At least 8 hours worth of teaching that was on there. Those videos that teaching package is available. Or if you're a Rooted Cafe member, you just get them for free. They're part of your membership. They're already up in there. You can start watching them. So way better deal to go over and try that for a month. What's Rooted Cafe? Gosh, for those of you who haven't reached out to me, I would love to talk to you more about that another time. But just so you know, it's a discipleship community for women. If you've been praying for something, someplace where you're praying for a place to learn and grow and not be overwhelmed by, where do I find the right information? Where can I ask questions? Where's a place I can trust? I see these women on stages or teaching, and I really wish I could sit and talk to them. We're the place. We're the place. We're the place. I want you to go check us out. I want you to go and look that up. So let's hop into Tzav. This is such a powerful portion, and I want to talk about the name. Okay, so let's just break it down. Let's give you the little hieroglyphic. Let me paint you a movie. The hieroglyphic, the moving parts, right? Because Hebrew is a verb-driven language. It's not flat. It's not just a picture of a thing. So the first letter in this pretty thing is a sadeh, and I want you to think of this. They'll say it's like a fish hook, but can I just present, or a righteous man? Okay. But let me give you a moving part to this. Imagine it's not just like a fish hook. It is the picture of something being pulled towards something, like a fish that's pulled towards that hook that has the bait towards the fisherman. Okay. So it's like us being pulled into the presence of God. How about that? You look at this letter about something's drawing us into his presence, like a hook with bait on it. Something's drawing you, or like a man it's also like a man prostrating itself before a king in submission, waiting for a blessing. So same thing. You're going into his presence for a blessing. Something's drawing you in for something really good and a blessing. Okay. And then the second letter is the Vav, which is like the peg. It's the connector. It's the secure fastening to you something. So if you can look at this word from that pretty picture look at that picture. And how then, before I even start reading this section, how do I go into this section thinking, he has put this together for me as something to entice me to come into his presence and connect me to a blessing with him for being in his presence. Does that change how you look at it? Does this change how you're going to read this? Because it did for me. It changed this year. How I go into reading this is just sitting in that going, wow, This is the dangling carrot. He's saying, come here, sister, brother, come here. I want you to come spend time. I want to connect you to some goodness. I want to connect you with some amazing things. And yeah, we start out right off the bat it says, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe saying, command Aaron, Aharon, and his sons saying, this is the Torah of the ascending offering. This is the ascending offering because it is burned to the slaughter place all night until morning, and the fire of the slaughter place is kept burning on it. This is the Korban Olah. Go back to last week and watch that. This is the Korban Olah. This is that approach of I presented last week for you to consider, of our will, our secret thoughts, how we are trying to lead our own lives in our own way, our own strength, our own things. This korban, it's this ascending offering that I'm saying, I'm giving this up. This is something he's saying, it's something that's happening all day long. So listen, it's slaughtered. This animal is slaughtered. We can look back before. It's slaughtered in the northern part of the courtyard. Not on the eastern. You'll see different parts of the courtyard where things are slaughtered. This one is slaughtered on the northern part of the courtyard. And that word can also mean hidden, the hidden part of the courtyard. So if the olah is to atone for these hidden things of our heart, this ascension, this offering that's going to be completely burned up is these hidden things. It needs to be processed in the hidden places. Things that are going on in the hidden places, they're not exposed. He's not, this is going to be slaughtered out in the middle of everybody. So everybody's going to see all your secret stuff. Everyone's going to see what a hot mess you are. That's not the case. It's slaughtered over in the northern section. The other section that happens is the chatat offering, and that's slaughtered in that same place. And kind of those unintentional or hidden things, maybe sinful thoughts, because it's happening in our mind, because our will is something that's going on in our mind, right? And it says that every day, all day, this is going on. This fire is going all day. These are burning all day long. This is to happen all day long, this offering that's happening by these Kohanim. And it reminded me that isn't this something that I need to do all day long? I need to constantly be giving up my will. Like I need to set an alarm on my phone that goes off. Hey, remember to give up your will again. Hey, remember to keep that fire burning. It's time to put another log on that fire because you're starting to go. I mean, constantly all day. Going another. I'm going my own will. My thoughts are going crazy. What should I do? How should I what are they thinking? What's up? All these vain imaginations that get crazy inside of me. If I'm keeping that fire burning all day and I'm constantly throwing my will on the altar, I wonder how different my life would look. It says this is burning all night long. You have to keep the fire on it. You have to keep a fire going all the time. So it says the priests then are going to put on these linen garments. They have different garments that they're changing into, and then they put, first of all, they're gonna put these garments, they're going to change their garments, they're going to put the ashes to the side, and then they're going to go change their clothes, and then they're going to take those things, all the ashes for that, and then they're going to walk them outside to a clean place, and then they're going to come back and change clothes again. So it was interesting when I was looking that up, that when they come back, and it's talking about this linen tunic they change back into, that the word is in Exodus 29:5, it talks about this, but it's fitted. This is a fitted garment. And the word for this fitted is kind of means to measure. It's fitted to the size of the individual. So we have garments that we put on to process things, because we talked about last week. If we're the Kohanim, if we're the priests, if we're supposed to walk in this, if we're supposed to bear one another's burdens, if we are supposed to be able to help each other process things at the altar, then there's a part of this that we are each wearing a fitted garment. Our garment is to be without spot or wrinkle. So when in the process of handling things maybe for others, we might need to change clothes and put on the spotted and wrinkled clothes, because this is so important. This one garment is so beautiful and fitted and individual for just me, that while I'm in this process, I'm going to make sure that I don't mess this up, and I'm going to change my clothes. We're going to come back to this. Again, I want to keep saying this. This is a daily, continual process. This is, to me, I just kept hearing pray without ceasing, pray without ceasing. And then I'm going to throw some random facts out there today because it's kind of like, it's kind of what this whole section is about. There's a lot of reiterations of what we've gone over before, but I want to just hit us with some facts and then let's maybe pull in some practicalities of it. So I think this can be confusing and overwhelming, and we can quickly go through it because we don't like it. So I'm just going to pop in some stuff. So there's 3 fires that are going on here. 3 fires are happening at this altar that have to be kept going at all time. There's a large fire, the big fire, the biggin. If you're from Northwest Arkansas, the biggin. Maybe Texas, you say biggin. If you say biggin, I need to know right now. Put it in the comments. I need you to put a 1 in the comments if you say biggin. Second fire is the incense coals, where they're taken and they're brought into the sanctuary for the morning after. The morning and in the morning, I'm sorry, in the morning and the after incense service. So there's the second fire where the coals are used to go into the sanctuary for this incense service. And then there's the perpetual fire. Then the perpetuation of the fire is kind of what it's called. The burning wood was added to this large flame whenever it was necessary. So you have these flames going. I'm not going to spend time on this, but I really think this is an area all on its own about these 3 fires. You have 3 fires that are happening. One is for incense, one is to burn up things, and one of them is this fire that keeps going. I want you to put in the remarks. Do you have verses that are popping in your mind about these fires, about fires that are continually going? Maybe a fire that has to happen in your life. How could you relate these 3 fires to your life that need to be kept going at all time? And not just kept going, but tended to. They have to be tended to. And what do I mean by that is ash had to be removed. It's a process. I don't know if you've ever had a even a campfire. A lot of you go somewhere for Sukkot and you'll go camping for the week and you have a campfire. You can't just let you're there for 7, 8, 9 days. You can't let this ash just keep piling up. Well, what's going to happen to the fire? It's going to choke your fire out, right? So in order to keep that fire hot, effective, to keep you warm, to do the job it's intended to do, the ash has to be removed. It's not just the process that was used for, we see the ashes used for some other things, like with a woman, we have that whole adultery ceremony. There's ashes that have to be used for that. But in this case, we have a job. And I think it's important in our lives that we realize like we could just be on fire and things are burning and we're doing things, but ash builds up because there's a byproduct of fire. And that ash can start building up, and sometimes it can quench out the fire. And I think that could go along with being weary and well-doing. We get so excited, and we're so excited about the well-doing that we're not taking the time to do some of the self-care. I was talking to my friend Debbie Franek on Monday after the conference, and she was saying, "Yeah, I'm not very productive today. I'm taking a self-care day." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, the best, most productive day." Monday after the conference, I personally also took a self-care day where I literally rested. I did only what I had to do and just allowed myself to rest after serving all day long, talking all day long. I had to let my jaws rest. I had to let a lot of things happen. I had to shovel some ash. What do you have to do? Tell me some of the things you do that you have to shovel ash away. The Kohen would scoop a shovelful from the innermost ashes of the altar, and then they would place it on the floor of the courtyard on the east ramp that leads up to the top of the altar. Like this is a process. And then these ashes are from the burnt flesh of the previous day's korbanats, the previous day's approaches. Every day, this is something every day. Father, what do I need to remove today? Because how do I keep things new? How am I not trying to operate in yesterday's fire, in yesterday's things? What do I have to remove so I'm constantly keeping that flame hot and bright? What old burn up things do I need to get rid of? And it's sometimes there's some grieving that happens with that. I was talking to my daughter and to another person this morning. We are talking about when God's leveling you up, sometimes you can go through a process of grieving because you're grieving things you're letting go, people you're letting go, things in your life you're having to let go. It feels really strange and you don't understand why you kind of feel like you're in a funk. because sometimes he's calling you to pull the ash away to make it hotter and brighter because you're still trying to cling on to yesterday's ashes. Whatever he's called you to burn up, you're still wearing them around. You're still wearing those ashes around. We'll see during Lent today people wearing their ashes around. And it just reminds me, I'm not saying bad or good. I'm just saying this just reminded me of what ashes am I trying to wear around? What am I trying to keep in there? Because I feel like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to release that yet. I'm not forgiven of that yet. I'm holding on to this old stuff, the old ash. And he's saying, I just clean the ash away. And do you keep hearing him saying, I want to give you beauty for those ashes? We're not walking in joy and gladness like he promised us because the ash is small, is dousing out that fire. And we're constantly having to work so hard to keep rebuilding a fire instead of just putting 2 logs on it every day. Like he's talking about, you just had to put a couple logs on the fire just to keep it going. Whereas for us, we're working nonstop. Why? Because we forget the part of removing the ashes. It's going to extinguish that fire if they're not removed. And then we see that the Kohen removes their sacred garments for this. And I was reading, some people say that this signifies changing your clothes for menial tasks and Shabbat tasks. Like when you're ready for Shabbat, about how important it is to, I've read some commentaries about how important it is changing from the menial clothing to where you want to put your Shabbat clothes on. Hold on and grab a Kleenex. This is a whole new concept for many because we're living in a age right now. I want to hear, how do you feel about that? Do you change into special clothes for high holy days? Do you get dressed up to go to fellowship? Are you dressed up when you're heading into Shabbat and you're going around your table? Are you just sliding in and you're just happy to be there? I don't know. I'm not, no judgment. I'm just asking, where are you at in this? Because in our culture right now, we live in a culture right now, we don't get dressed up for anything hardly. Remember when I love watching old movies and you see them going to the baseball games and they've got the hats on and the suits on and everyone's dressed up, or they're going somewhere and the ladies have gloves and they're all dressed. And for me, I'm sad that we don't get dressed up anymore. A lot of people, the only time they get dressed up if they go on a cruise, and then they get dressed up for dinner so they can take those pictures, right? My mom, well, I mean, she wouldn't go to the store. She wouldn't leave the house without lipstick on. And even if she had to do it, it was like emergency. She would say, you need to put sunglasses on and red lipstick. And then that's how you get away with it, because no one's going to know that you don't have makeup on underneath. You just do not take off those glasses and you have red lips on, and they're going to be so focused on the red lips, they're not going to notice. Yeah. Now we can go to the store in our pajamas, our workout clothes, yoga pants. Guilty. I don't know. What do you think? How do you feel about this? What is your input on this? I do see some of your comments as they're coming up. So if you're watching from somewhere live right now, I would love to hear your comments. How are you feeling about this? Because this is kind of showing us that there's a time when you do things in certain clothes in certain times that are done. It's time to get down and dirty. And then it's time to not. Now it's time to, like, let's fresh up. This is a fitted garment that I'm to wear that is without spot or wrinkle. And I'm to keep it that way. And I'm to honor and cherish certain things that I wear. And it representing things in my life that I'm honoring. So can we just mention that for all those years that fire never went out? I want to just take a minute and I want you to think, because I think we skip some obvious things. And this is one of them. All those years, that fire never went out until the temple was destroyed. First temple. Remember? All those years, the fire never went out. That's a lot of tending. Some of you have lived a life like that and you feel blessed because the fire hasn't gone out, and you have you have done the work every single day to remove the ash, to keep the fire hot, to put your will on the altar, to do the things in the secret places that you know you need to do, all the hidden things, the entrails, the fat, the things that are, don't tell anyone, the filters, when your filters messed up, like the kidneys and the liver, filters in your body, right? the fat, the things that were protecting you, those are put on the altar, and you're saying, I'm willing to give up the things that protect and filter, because those get dirty and those get yucky. I'm constantly filtering things out, I need to, that's overwhelming. There could be a buildup, right? That copper layer on that thin little copper layer, it never melted. In all those years with all that heat, it never melted. The wood didn't char up. The wood didn't burn. Twice a day, all this stuff is happening. They're putting things on, they're doing things, plus perpetually on the other sides of the altar, things are being slaughtered. This is hot, this is going on, and it was maintained. It didn't get too hot. It was just perfect all those years. All right, so we'll jump in. We have a grain offering. It happened in the morning. Half of it was happened in the morning, and then it said half of it happened in the evening, was made up. It said to make it on a griddle and then bring it mixed and baked, and all of it's just going to be burned up. So what I found, and I remember in this area, is that, just so you know, for this, these are, fun facts. Every Kohen, every priest was required to do this once in their lifetime. The first time that they were to step into temple service, they were to do this. And then after that, they didn't have to do that, but the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, was the one who did it day after day after day after day. And then you would have the priest just coming into service. Those would be happening for them. They would be doing it. And I sat there and I was like, and it also says, you can take this and do your own study, but they were repeatedly baked. It said they were scalded in water, baked, and then fried. They're done. These were done. This grain offering was done, and done. But we have, I'm going to make sure someone said unmute, well, you can hear me. We have, we've talked before about this grain offering being a representation of provision. And when I sat in this, and I was like, well, Father, what does that have to do with these priests? Of course, the high priest is constantly, think about, the high priest is constantly giving up his ability to provide for himself. He's saying, I'm not going to take it on my own. Every day, I'm giving up the ability to provide. Plus, he's doing that for the people. But then you have these priests who are coming into service, and they are to do it the first time they come into service, that they're to do this ritual that day and that night. I realized, from my understanding today, is they were giving up their ability as they stepped into service to bring provision to their family. And they were receiving the provision of the Holy One. They would get that grain offering. This is I'm giving up this ability to provide. And then from now going forward, I'm going to receive whatever provision people bring that I'm allowed to participate in, to bring sustenance to myself and my family. This is where I'm giving up my right, my ability, any of that, as I step into service. And to me this morning, that was beautiful as I sat in that. Because many of you are ministers. Many of you have given up your ability to bring provision for yourself. I retired way early as a nurse. My ability to provide a very good income for myself and my family, and benefits and all the things that go with that, and 401ks and all the stuff, that goes along with it. Many of you have done this. You've given up your careers so that you were going to live solely on whatever the Holy One chooses to bring to you through whatever ministry that you've given your life to. And I pray that encourages you, for those of you who are working, who do not have a Levitical call. You're not working in a ministry full time, and that you haven't been given up. Considering that, praying for God to show you who you are to give to, so that those that have made that decision, they continually are blessed, and their families are blessed and fed and have all the things, because they've decided to give up their lives for this. And that's what I saw this morning as I was spending some time in this, was that. And then hopping into the Chatat Korbanot, we come back into that. The priest, they're making atonement. Whoever's making the atonement eats it. They wash everything that the blood is sprinkled on it. If the blood sprinkles on a garment, they wash it. However, if the blood or any of it hits a earthen vessel, it has to be broken. So if it can be washed off, it's okay, because it's not the chatat missing the mark. It hasn't corrupted. It hasn't influenced that vessel or that garment because it can be washed away. However, if it hits a vessel, an earthen vessel that can absorb it, that can absorb all of the chatat, that whatever it's going to take on the flavor, it has to be broken. Let me say that again. If the vessel has absorbed the chatat, we'll call it sin, we'll hear here, missing the mark. If it absorbed the sin, if it has absorbed the flavor, the essence, if it is an earthen vessel, it can't be washed away. It has to be broken because it's now been contaminated. Selah. We see Yeshua. It was broken. It was that vessel that was broken. But can we just get really personal and say we're earthen vessels? We're earthen vessels. What chatat do we need to be very careful that we don't allow to permeate this vessel? Because it requires, and one of the reasons it requires us to be broken every day, constantly be broken before him. We have to allow this vessel to he will shine through all the broken places, right? There's so many beautiful teachings on this, but we have to be careful of what flavors we're absorbing. What are we allowing to come inside of our vessel that's actually causing it then to require to be broken? Because now it will take on whatever it comes around. So if the blood, it says if the blood is brought into the tent of appointment, then this is not eaten, but then it's burnt. I'm just going to pop out some details real quick. Moving on. The sages relate this to when we repent. Let me say, if the blood is brought in, if the thing is brought in, and somehow something happens, and it can't be eaten, it is now contaminated. Then that offering, that approach has to be burnt up. Okay. So I was reading that the sages actually relate that when we repent, and this is a very Jewish perspective, which you're going to love this. Ready? Sages relate that when we repent, it is as if we went up to Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple and the altar and brought it all the offerings of the Torah. That when we repent, it's as if, because there's no temple, it's as if we are going up to Jerusalem and rebuilding the temple and the altar and everything that's happening. Every day we do it, every time we do it, it's a perpetual thing that we get to participate in. Because if we're the human temple, and if we chatat, we contaminate it. When we repent, we rebuild the temple of ourselves and we recreate the temple inside of us. Isn't that cool? If we're this human temple and we chatat, we miss the mark, we sin, we contaminate this earthen vessel, we contaminate this temple, but when we repent, we rebuild this temple or ourselves. Could you guys hear it? Old things are passed away and all things become new. We recreate the side of us. I pulled up Galatians 5. Let's see if I have it marked. So it's a fast. Yes, yay. So I want to read Galatians 5. I'm going to start at verse 15, I think. Yeah. I'll start in 14. For the entire Torah is completed in one word, in this: you shall love your neighbor as you yourself are loved. And if you bite and devour one another, beware lest you consume by one another. And I say, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not accomplish the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are opposed to each other, so that you do not what you desire to do. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are, it says, not under Torah, meaning you're not going to be destroyed by the repercussions of Torah. It gives life to you. And the works of the flesh are well known, which are these: adultery, whoring, uncleanness, indecency, idolatry, drug, sorcery, hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, self-ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, murder, drunkenness, wild parties, and the like, of which I forewarn you, even as I also said before, that those who practice such of these shall not inherit or reign with Elohim. Can I just remind you, if you look through there, I have a pet peeve. Notice that homosexuality is not listed in there. Yes, it's probably can fit in there, but there are so many other things in there. I don't know why we decide that that's the unpardonable sin and we're going to focus on that's just the one that nobody can handle. Look at that list, because I can tell you there's so many in here that I have to just be before the Father on. I am I, I am so glad that homosexuality is not one that I deal with. That's not something he didn't have me have to struggle with. But there's some on this list that I really, some of you factions. If you're just struggling and fighting and arguing about factions, yeah. Anyways, okay. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who are of Messiah have impaled the flesh with its passions and the desires. I want you to think about yourself, putting yourself on the altar. And if we live by the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit, and let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. You can keep on reading about us bearing one another's burdens. It says in 6, brothers, if a man is overtaken in some trespass, here's where we stand at the altar with them. You, the spiritual ones, set such a one straight in a spiritual meekness, looking at yourself, lest you be tried too. Bear one another's burdens, and so complete the Torah of Messiah. For if anyone thinks of himself as somebody when he's not, he deceives himself. But let each one of you examine your own works, and then you shall have boasting in himself alone and not in another. For each one shall bear his own burden, and let him who is instructed in the word shall in all that is good, share in all that is good with him who is instructing. I'm just going to say, and it keeps going, don't be led astray. Don't do all. Listen, that's Galatians. He is speaking to the people, and he's speaking to these Galatians. He's speaking to these people who live, would be up inside Turkey. He's sharing with them and saying, listen, this is how we hold each other up. This is all going to be happening, but this is how we're going to walk through this together. Each one of us have to come before the Father, and then we have to help with each other as well. Okay. The next one, just we pop in. I have a few minutes left. Asham Korbanot. The Asham Korbanot. It can be called the trespass offering, but it's also this shame. And we spent a lot of time on this last week. But I just want to say the Asham, the Aleph, the Sheen, and the Mem. That's the spelling. So let's do a little hieroglyphic word dance on this. The Aleph, we know it's the ox, but it's the power of God. It's the Father. It's the power. Okay, the Sheen, the fire. Again, his power, fire, and the Mem is water, but it's revelation. It's what's leading us to something. So if we see this whole korbanot, this whole thing, this asham, the goal of it, if you see the picture of this, the goal of it is to stand in his power, and anything that let the fire burn away anything, so that we are the revelation, that we're led into the right places. You know how water will lead you to the right places. Otherwise, the contronym of that is we're going to do the powers of the world that are going to end up bringing chaos, which mem could be chaos. That's the contronym of that. So what he wants to do is flip that, and he wants to give his power, not by my might, not by my power, but his, right? By his Spirit. And if instead of letting shame and guilt be the thing that weighs me down and blocks the revelation and the power moving through me, instead I'm going to come before him, and I'm going to release that, and I'm going to embrace the power and the fire and all that he has, the purpose, like releasing that purpose on you. Because one of the things that guilt and shame is going to do, it's going to keep you from doing your duty. In one of the words, when I looked it up in Asham, if you look up the Asham, it says to fail in duty, to become guilty. So if we are so stuck in the shame and guilt, you can't walk in your calling, and you can't perform your duty because you've blocked the flow, because you can't approach him. In that, there's something keeping you from the approach, and what's keeping you from the approach is listening to a different power, the power that says, did he really say that? Did he really say that? Did you know you're naked? Did you know you're vulnerable? Did you know? And the Holy One saying, who told you that? Today he's saying, who told you that? Because I wanted you to walk with me every day in the garden so that with the Father, the Creator, through my fire, everything, I'm going to bring revelation to you. You're going to get to walk in that with me every day. Yeshua said, you're not slaves. You're no longer slaves. We are co-heirs and co-regents with him. He wants us to walk and talk with him and walk in our purpose. And so to do that, we have to take this Asham Korbanot to him and approach him and say, here, I've got some stuff that's keeping me from your presence. I've been listening to a different voice. I've been listening to the hiss that's been saying I'm naked and I'm naked and I haven't allowed the rebuilding of my tabernacle for old things to pass away and all things to become new every single day. I'm not cleaning out the ash. It's keeping my fire from burning hot and bringing the revelation and the things that need to happen. Father, I just want to sit with you right now. And can we just walk through this and show me the areas I need to work on? Isn't that cool? That's where we're at. All right, random fact. If you didn't know this, random fact is the sheep is the only animal in the whole all these processes whose tail can be put on the altar. So, in case you're going to be in a Bible quiz and it's a random fact that comes up, you now will get that. You're a trivia team, and they'll be like, "What animal's tail is the only tail allowed on the altar?" Altogether, you guys are going to say sheep. All right, chapter 7, verses 7 through 9. Why did I put that? Because I probably wanted to read it to you. Chapter 7, 7 through 9. The guilt offering is like the sin offering. There is one Torah for them both. The priest who makes atonement with it is his, and the priest who brings another ascending offering, the skin of the ascending offering, which is he has brought, is the priest's. It's his. And every grain offering that is baked in the oven, and all that is prepared in the stewing pot, and the griddle is the priest who brings it to his. So everything that priest he gets to have. I want to just say that you are assigned people in your sphere of influence, and there's things that you get to participate with, and it's, if someone say I don't feel like I deserve it because maybe God's brought a blessing into your life or a provision into your life, can I just, again, I'll share again, yeah, you don't deserve it. Please, let's all pray none of us get what we deserve. But you know what? I want you to know that he wants to make a way for you, and it may look weird. It may look like you're at the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. Maybe it looks like something's come your way. That makes sense. And I know that seems crazy in here, but I want to throw that. But I want to remind you again, it's really about us bearing one another's burdens. That's how we fulfill Torah. That's how we fulfill the law of our Messiah. In Galatians 6:2, go back to Galatians. Do I have it? Galatians. In Galatians 6:2, he says, bear one another's burdens and so complete the Torah of Messiah. When I was looking that one up, bearing one another's burdens, I keep saying, how am I treating other people? How am I treating them? Now, there's a limit. If you have someone who's like, we're talking months, years, they're still like bringing the same stuff, they're still never processing, constantly wanting you, because it's literally now about them not being in a healthy place. There is a point when either you need to pass it off to another priest, or you have to call them out and be like, I can't keep processing the same stuff at the altar with you, because you literally are like trying to revive the animal from the dead and slaughter it and do it again. We need to let it go and move forward. You're telling the same story you've been telling for the last year, 5 years, 10 years. You're telling the same story about how you were wounded and how you were hurt and how things are happening, instead of what he's doing now and the goodness. Or maybe you have a new thing you have to process. That's fine. But if you're with people who are constantly wanting to tell the same story over and over and over, I present to you that a lot of times for them, it's like a heroin. They get that dopamine rush for telling their story, for getting the attention. So sometimes we have to call it out and say, listen, we've killed this ox and sheep so many times. It's time we stop. What are you going to do to move forward? Because it's dead. I've cleared the ashes away. I've taken him outside the camp. I've done all the work. We've done the work here. It's time to move on. But then there's the parts of us that we're not helping the people daily. We're not helping. Sometimes we're so focused on the people that are they're like perpetually wounded, and they're so deep in the pits of this that they require something more than we can give. that we're not able to help the people who are coming into our path every day and treating them well and helping them process things, praying with them, just praying with someone every day. Are you reaching out to people every day and saying, how can I pray for you today? Are you doing that? Because I've been called lately, he's like telling me you need to reach out and start asking people, how can I pray with you? And pray right then, like, okay, I'll pray about it. No, like right then, even if you're texting it, do a text of prayer. I think we get so focused on learning a bunch of cool stuff in Hebrew and learning a bunch of things that we forget about how we're helping each other process something. So this word bear one another's burdens and stuff, the word is, it says to fulfill the law of Yeshua Messiah. The word is anah in Greek. The word is anah in Greek, and it's to fulfill. To fulfill in Greek, but if you look at it in Greek, it says a notion of taking something from a lower place to a higher place. So bearing one another's burdens, and in doing so, you take things from a low place and you help bring them up to a higher place. Do you guys see the korbanot? Especially the olah, right? You help lift something from a low place to a high place. You help bring his word from being something that's not operating in their lives, but you help bring it up, you help lift it up so that it's operating, the word is operating in their life. You help bring them up to a level to where they're functioning at a new level with him, where they've just seen their purpose, where all of a sudden they're not walking in guilt and shame and death. All of a sudden they realize that Yeshua took all that to the cross, and he was the broken vessel he was completely devout. I mean, he took on all of our sin, guilt, shame, everything and he absorbed it into that earthen vessel that he took on, and it was broken. It had to be broken so that we would be forgiven, because that couldn't absorb all that because it was now no good, right? Okay, so it's that notion of taking something from a lower place to a higher place. We get to do that as co-laborers. All right, let's see if I have time. We're going to hop into an offering that we haven't talked about, a korbanot, a Thanksgiving. In Psalms 107, David talks about this quite a bit, and he talks about the four categories. There's four categories of people that are required to bring these. So this is just giving you some fun facts about this particular. There's four things, which is fun because I want to hear, how do you feel like this applies to today? Like, let's make it practical. But as a Thanksgiving, like, we're supposed to bring our request. With Thanksgiving, we present our request to God, right? And what happens as a result? It says the peace, the shalom of God transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind. We started talking about this in the beginning. So let's talk about this Thanksgiving offering. In this Thanksgiving offering, it said there was four people who needed to bring it. If you survived a desert, if you went through the Sahara Desert for a hazardous journey, then you needed to bring a Thanksgiving offering because you made it. Can I just ask you, how many of you, maybe even just this week, have survived a desert or a hazardous journey? Your life has been a hazardous journey. I think he's calling you to bring an offering of thanksgiving. Just an amazing Father, or telling your story that people, by the word of your testimony, that you're taking them from the low place to the high place. That you're saying, I am so excited because he brought me out of the miry clay. He put my feet on solid rock. I survived the desert. I survived the journey. If you're around me very much, we laugh because they'll say, someone's griping about something, and I may say, but did you die? But did you die? So I'm going to say today to you, did you die? You haven't died. So you have something to be thankful for. This is exciting. You survived the desert. The second one, a dangerous imprisonment. You survived a dangerous imprisonment. Can I just tell you, we're not going to talk about ex-spouses. Just kidding. Many of you have survived a dangerous imprisonment. It might have been to a ministry. It might have been to a fellowship. It might have been to a relationship with a friend or someone. Maybe it was imprisonment you survived a dangerous imprisonment to food, to an addiction of some type. What have you survived a dangerous imprisonment to? You didn't die, and he delivered you from it. What do you need to do a Thanksgiving offering today for? Okay, third one, a serious illness. You survived or you got through a serious illness in your body, in your mind. What has he delivered you from? That we get to bring a Thanksgiving offering on the daily to him. This was a big event, by the way. Like, oh my gosh, like serious illness. Now, and we're skipping over this part that we get to bring this beautiful offering to him for this. A sea voyage is the last one. You survived a sea voyage. Man, some of my life has been a crazy sea voyage. Some high seas, crazy waves. Didn't think I was going to make it, but I'll be like my Vessel Goodman song. I wouldn't take nothing but from a journey now. I wouldn't take nothing for this journey now because I didn't die, and it was all Romans 8:28, and it's so exciting, and I'm going to try to hurry now. So this is like a shalom offering in a couple ways, except that it's eaten a day. You have to eat it. They had to eat it within a day and a night, and in shalom you had 2 days and a night to eat it. But this todah, or this Thanksgiving offering, it would be accompanied by 40 loaves, 10 of each kind of loaf. Half of the flour would make up 30 unleavened loaves with oil. The other half would make up 10 loaves with leaven, and they would be baked without oil. This is a whole teaching all on its own, y'all. Leavened, quickly we talk about it, maybe means chata, it means the chametz, like Keisha Gallagher has a beautiful teaching on this in Grace and Torah. If you go on there, her blog is really good on this, but about the leavening, sometimes we think we have a different concept. I would love for you to go read that. But quickly, leaven sometimes symbolizes growth and unrestrained freedom. And then unleavened represents food, and their oil symbolize this well-being for food and well-being of essentials for life. So it's saying basically that you've crossed over from danger to life for any of those things. You're bringing these saying, I've crossed over from danger to life, and recognizing that you owe, excuse me, everything to God. 1 loaf of each is given to the Kohen. So much symbolism in that. 1 of each of those loaves is given to the Kohen. And let's remember our high priest, that he's the bread of life. Interesting, he came out of the house of bread from Bethlehem. So if you're trying to drag it around, I'm going to hurry. If you're trying to drag it around and eat it later, it's disqualified, or it's pigul, and the person who does it bears the iniquity. He bare it upon him. The chastisement for our iniquity was upon him. Things that we've bared on our own, the things that we've pigun, things that we've disqualified, he bore that for us. So everything that we've done that disqualified, it was all upon him. Is that a stretch? Maybe. But I believe that he not only was the vessel that had to be broken, but he's also everything that we have brought something, and the chastisement for that chatat, the chastisement for us doing that as the priest, he took it on himself. He took it. It's all a matter of the heart. The thought of the one who's doing the offerings, if something changes, it becomes pigul, and it must be all burned up. Gotta go. We're walking this out, you guys, in our thoughts and our words and our actions. I have made so many things pigul, it has to be burned up. But I want to just say, this is the time when I believe that the Holy One is blessing you and dressing you the same way that Moshe at the end of this blesses the priests. He puts the blood on the ear, on the hand, on the toe. Maybe do we think Shema, Shamar, Asa? What am I going to hear? What am I going to obey? What am I going to do? That it all needs to be consecrated. It all needs to be consecrated. It all needs to be brought before him, because he's wanting to change you into his likeness every single day. And he's wanting you to be able to run into his presence and let nothing hinder you, because nothing has separated you from his love. So I want you today to be able to run boldly to the throne. Can't wait to see you next week.
זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך, והוא רואה, והוא שומע, ואכפת לו מכל דבר קטן. תדע לך, שזו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך. זה שיר פשוט.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.